the business, and generally, what is the role that customer feedback plays within the broader business?
Yeah, so my job title is Voice of Customer Program Lead, and I guess the answer is kind of in the name. It's Voice of Customer. It's really bringing customers into the organization and into the conversation. In any organization, there's going to be a lot of different data points. And it's easy to focus on things like revenue and EBITDA and sales, etc. And it's also difficult because in any organization, resources, time, and money is always tight. So trying to come up with improvements or solutions that benefit customers and the business can be a difficult thing to do. And so the point of Voice of Customer is to essentially enable a new data set and a new metric set that is focused on bringing customers and partners into that conversation. You can look at lots of different data points and make various assumptions around what the right move strategically is for the organization. But it also makes it a lot easier when you can back that up with real feedback from your business partners and your customers to say, well, this is actually what they want. This is their pain points. This is what they want to see more of or less of. And creating a metric that essentially helps the organization say, well, we obviously have finite resources, and we want to make sure that when we're directing them into projects, that it is something that's going to benefit customers and partners.
At X, we generally see that organisations implement Voice of the Customer platforms for four main reasons. And the first one being process and product improvement, employee engagement, so using feedback to coach your employees and to engage them, retention, complaints and compliance, in other words, solving individual customers' problems before they run off to social media or regulators or ombudsman, and business reporting. At MLC, which of those use cases do you think that does your Voice of the Customer platform try and address?
All of them in kind of one stream or another. So I think, as you say, I think most businesses enter a Voice of Customer program wanting to, create that kind of reporting and that metric that you can surface through metrics like NPS or CSAT to better understand what customers are saying. That generally starts to kind of metastasize and turn into how do we actually then take all that feedback and use it for product and process or improvement points. And so I think kind of that's a natural progression. But then also what can't be ignored is that what you mentioned around employee coaching or risk. So for example, if you do get feedback that an employee hasn't engaged with a customer that meets the values or expectations of the organization, then no business is just going to say, oh well, that's not the purpose of this program. So usually that starts to become addressed, and so we branch out into like a closed loop feedback program where we can better understand when customers are in a way displaying dissatisfaction or making complaints through this program, that we have a way to close that out, resolve those issues before point of escalation. I mean, it can also turn into a proxy sales channel, because if you do have a customer who says, I'm not happy for whatever reason, I'm thinking of leaving your brand, it actually gives you a proactive opportunity to try and call that customer and save that customer, as opposed to them just leaving. So it can actually create, a retention opportunity as you go. And then, of course, through programs like QA and contact centers and whatnot, Voice of Customer really marries up well in that. Instead of, a lot of, say, if you've got a call center, a lot of call centers will say, let's survey, a 3-minute call, a 5-minute call, an 8-minute call, and get some insight on how their call center staff are interacting and engaging with customers. Voice of Customer provides the end result. So you can look through your feedback and find feedback where customers have expressed potentially that the person they spoke to didn't meet their expectations, and then that provides more direct coaching opportunities, kind of as opposed to taking shots in the dark. When you're doing QA, you can be a lot more strategic around the coaching that's offered through the Voice of Customer program.
Why was it required, and how did that change get implemented? It
was a small program that existed with Centra CX that focused on email specific surveying. And the challenge that we had was the samples and volumes were quite low. In some months only getting a couple of dozen responses, which is still good and valuable, and you can still, get information out of that. But we felt that as we came off the back of that replatforming program, there was a lot more we could do to really understand the customer journey, the advisor and partner journey. And we hadn't really leveraged the Voice of Customer program in I guess the right way. And so the leadership team at MLC, conscious of the fact we could be doing more to understand the needs of our customers and partners, put up an investment to improve this program. And so that's where we did a bit of a refresh on Voice of Customer. And that included rolling out, surveying into different departments and episodes and journeys along customer and advisor experiences with the brand. Also introducing new channels of surveying, so moving not just in email, but we can go through post-call surveys now and SMS. So trying to survey customers in channels that work for them. So for example, if a customer calls a call center, they've picked up the phone and called. So it kind of makes sense to survey them on the phone call there, potentially, as opposed to sending an email afterwards. So we tried to meet the customer in the channel that they'd preference for. And what we experienced through that was what we were hoping for, which was a really larger material increase in volume of feedback. So as I say, we went from, a few dozen surveys a month to we're getting anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000 pieces of feedback a month at the moment, which is quite significant. I think we take around 15,000 direct calls and interactions through our contact team. So we've moved up to about almost 1 in 3 interactions are having some form of surveying at the moment, which has now provided us with a huge war chest of customer feedback and insights that the business can now, chew through and start to really surface where we can make our customer and partner experiences even better and more valuable.
In terms of maturity around VoC,
yeah.
How have you seen that journey at MLC, and how do you think it'll progress into the future?
It's been exponential the past 12 months because, the program, like I said, we had a really basic kind of program that we've invested time, effort, and resources into. And we're starting to get a lot of data, feedback, and insights that are already starting to shape business decisions, and people around the organization are starting to talk about it more. Stakeholders that previously hadn't had much to do with the program are now reaching out saying, hey, how can we get involved? How can we merge this data into other streams and work within the organization? Especially a lot of transformational and project teams are really keen to say, how can we use the Voice of Customer data as a backstop for our programs? How do we prove out that the projects we're doing exist to hit a mark for a customer suite? And then how can we measure success through it? And again, I think it's really, like I said before, it's build it and they will come. I think it can be hard for people who haven't had much to do with Voice of Customer, or haven't had the experience to understand the value in it. But once you start and open those floodgates and people start to see the kinds of feedback and how it can be used to shape a better overall experience, then there's not like I said before, there's not a department or a lead or manager anywhere who wouldn't want to be part of that.
Thank you very much, Jason. Really appreciate the time that you've put in, and your insights into the way that Voice of the Customer has worked at MLC.